All right, I had a bit of time last night, so I did a bit of assembly on the elevators and the rudder, and I did record a time lapse. So you'll see all that. It goes really quick, and then today I will place all of the hinge blocks, as you can see, like this, just so the hinges have something solid to glue into, and get all that done and ready for the next step. Once that's done, cut this down to 170 millimeters as required by the instructions. Trim the jig tabs or the former tabs or whatever you want to call it off, and then we can sheet this side really quick, and it won't take long at all. Some of these I'll just cut in half and use the other half on the other side. It's mostly to give you an idea and to remind myself as to what I got to do. Yeah, so I'm going to go out to the shop and cut these real quick. I don't like cutting the carbon fiber inside because it is very itchy when it gets into your skin. I'll get that done, and then I'll be back and I'll put it on a time lapse, and I'll quickly skin the other side of these. And if I have time this morning, I'll set up a wing and get that going. I'm going to start the exciting part. I've got the rudder and all of its parts. Sorry, this is the elevator. This is the rudder and all of its parts. Elevator and all of its parts. So I'll assemble everything, flip the elevator jig, and assemble the other half. When I built my second interceptor, I had 2 formers for the wing and 2 formers for the elevator, so I just built everything at once. And I prefer to do it that way with wings that join in the middle so that they line up really well. Then I'm sure there's no twist or anything else that I have to trim out while it's flying. Anyhow, I'll switch it over to time lapse and I'll get started. that is the elevator halves and the rudder. Next up on the rudder, you saw how I was forming the front edge. I'll do the same on the elevators. The next step is I put the blocks of wood out. Got to get all these glued in for the hinges. So that'll be next. Just let you guys see what I'm talking about. Everywhere there's a hole, one of these gets glued in before you sheet the other side. And then I just sand them off to the right thickness. Yeah, so tomorrow I will get this all finished up and I'll cut the rudder and elevator free, and then the leading edges of the control surfaces get, oh yeah, they're already marked E, A, so perfect, there's the rudder right there. So I don't have to guess what goes where, but that's easy to figure out. Everything's marked up nicely. Alright, well, until I start on the next phase, which shouldn't take too long. It goes together really quick. I've gone around and glued all the insides. I put the blocks in, glued them all. These are glued in. Due to destructive testing, I've come to the conclusion that the method I use for securing these is plenty sufficient. I set this length so that the tube isn't protruding through the skin. You may have seen that in the time lapse. So those are set on both. Everything's glued here, hinge blocks are in. One thing I'd like to do really quick is double check that my control horns fit nicely. It looks like they might get pinched out a little bit. I can leave that as well. It's not a big deal. So I'll let this dry. I just want to make sure that I don't have any voids like this right here. So I'll get that really quick. It is glued on the other side, but I'll let it dry and then I'll double check all my glue work. Make sure everything's secure, and then I'll trim all the former tabs off and give it a light sand just to make sure that everything planes nicely, and then I'll skin the second layer, and that should conclude the tail. Alright, I had a few minutes in between a few things, and I've cut off all of the legs. I've also taped these pieces together where they go, so I can just fold them back, glue everything, put it down, and it's done. So I'm going to do all of that now on the elevators and the rudder. Hopefully everything goes well, and it's done shortly. I'll probably leave the front edge open until the main sheet has dried, and then I'll glue that in. Just seems to be a little better. Anyway, I'll switch it over to time lapse. And that concludes the elevators, the rudder, and all that stuff's ready for final sand. These get cut off to slide in. I have a little bit of extra tube, which I think I can fit here. Yeah, so I'll do that. It'll get cut off as well. Remember I was talking about this tubes running into the skin, so I'll cut these off so it can go flush. And then this tube I'll fit all the way in here for the spar. Flush on both ends, and that'll be good. Alright, I will set up a wing and lay it out for you. I don't know if I'll get to gluing it right now. Maybe tonight I'll glue the wings up and have those done as well. It's all over there, up there, and back there. Let's get going. there's a wing framed out, and I've got the laminations together. I've got the landing gear under here getting a little bit of pressure on it, which will help it harden up pretty good. And I'm almost out of coffee, so there we go. During 1 cup of coffee, we sheeted tail surfaces on the second side, and we framed out a wing. So I do have some carbon spars that I have to get in here. I'll read the instructions from Tom really quick, and it looks like I'm going to have to pull this off to slide this in. So, I might be able to get it just from the end here. That's probably what I'll do. It looks like I can pull this off right here and slide it in. But I'll mark it up so I know where to sand it. I'll do all the sanding, slide it in, glue the whole thing up. These landing gear block are always fun to fit. That piece goes right here, and then the block itself sits in this little area here. So that gets put together. These little discs are the stoppers for the wing tube. When I put that in, that one goes right here, and the other goes here, and this is just a stiffener. Alright, I've cut 25 millimeters off this so it fits. I can in fact take the end off and slide this spar in. And the next thing, it's been a couple of hours. I had some things to run and do because I still have a full-time job. Kind of weird. So I will review all of my work, and then I will work on getting this all glued together, lined up nicely, and we'll do the same process as the tail surfaces. I'll sheet it, flip the former. Hopefully I'll have time to get everything back in place before my next meeting. And then later tonight I will do this whole process one more time. All right, it's still the same day. It's getting close to 9 p.m. I think. I rushed through the other wing and I got to put one blind nut in. It's over there. It's a lot of parts sitting there now, but that'll be an easy fix. My big event this afternoon was hiking a local mountain to get a haircut in the sunset on a peak. And here is the result. Yes, handsome. Anyway, I'll get back to this now. I'm going to put it on time lapse and I'm going to quickly assemble the wing, and then tomorrow I will sheathe the other side of the wing, put the blocks in, sheathe the other side. I learned a few things on the last one. Primarily, I had to cut a rib for right here, just a false rib to hold the sheathing. And I also notched the sheathing out so it fits a bit better. The other thing I noticed is the sheathing. I wanted this seam right here to be between the flap and the aileron, so in this gap, and that wasn't happening. So I shifted the sheathing over, and in the process, you can see by that amount, the slots no longer line up for the control horns, which I'll have to cut through from the other side. And the sheathing's a tiny bit short on this end, and the hole doesn't line up. So I think this edge, this back edge, will be covered inside just barely when the wing slides on to the airframe. Other than that, like I said, I got a lot of work to do inside here still. I have to do all the hinge blocks. I have one more blind nut to get installed, and I gotta do all of the gluing. So I'm gonna glue everything again with the white glue so it sits in there and tightens everything up nice. Yeah, overall, as you can see, it goes together quite quick. Alright, there you have it. Everything looks really good. The gears fits, that's nice. You saw the few modifications I've done. I realize now that I could have cut 2 millimeters off this sheet, maybe 2.5, slid this sheet this way, and these may have lined up with the original marks. And that was all because I didn't want this flap sheet to be off the edge of the rib. So I slid it over to get onto the rib and sacrificed having these marks work. The other one I did a little differently on, yeah, so I think in the future, I hope I get to build another one of these. There's a few things I would do just a little differently, but overall, I think it's quite good. Alright, so tomorrow, I will glue the inside. I think you saw me doing that on the elevators. So I'll glue everything on the inside and I'll reinforce around the gear block. Probably just put some triangle stock in there. I don't think it'll need it because I think the weak spot is going to be all of this structure more than the connection here. So adding epoxy and making a big fillet here is nice, but I'm still limited by the size of these members if I want to have ultimate strength. So I'm not going to put a ton of time into reinforcing that, and I look forward to flying it more than anything. I feel like it turned out pretty straight considering. This was the first one I did. The second one you saw me spray some window cleaner on the balsa and stretch the top surface to help roll it around the corner. This sheet here has a seam from soft balsa to hard balsa, and it was a bit of a trick, so I had to really work this 20 mils with my fingers to get it to open up. This one, the seam was further back, so it worked nicely. Something to bear in mind when you're bending sheets is to look at what you got to deal with and be ready. Almost everything else I was lucky. I had soft balsa on the leading edge and you can just roll it right around without too much work. The beauty of scratch building is you get to choose where your material goes. On these kinds of builds, you kind of get what you get out of the box and utilize whatever methods necessary to make it work to your desire. Anyway, that's it for today, day number 3. I did go to work today. I do have a job. So this has been between all of the other chaos that's in my day, including a hike to get a haircut, which that was a fantastic experience. All right, I'll see you next time.